The owners' meetings finished early here in Arizona, but we are still here. Here is a recap of everything that happened this week. Of course, the big thing is interference plays are now reviewable. Here's Steelers president Art Rooney II and NFL Network's Judy Battista on the change.
I think the main thing that's been expanded is this year offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference will become reviewable plays. First time we've had penalties that can be reviewed, and so in that regard, it's kind of a major change. But it's in for 1 year, and I think that the thinking was that these are usually consequential plays involving a lot of yardage, game-changing kinds of plays, and so that's why it's going to be tried out for 1 year.
You know, it's interesting. We were talking to Troy Vincent earlier today about what do you think we're going to see. He expects that early in the season we're probably going to see a rise in offensive pass interference because he thinks that will be challenged. That's something he said it's the hardest call officials have to make. But we all see that pick play being run all the time. He thinks there's going to be challenges on that now, so he thinks we might see a rise in that. He thinks that it's probably going to affect back shoulder fade plays. And interestingly, he said on the Hail Mary, which is something, when I talked to coaches last night, there were questions from coaches about how is this going to affect the Hail Mary at the end of each half. And Troy Vincent said the instruction to officials is going to be very disciplined on the Hail Mary. In other words, hands off the Hail Mary. Don't be ticky-tack on the Hail Mary. They don't want to wipe the Hail Mary opportunity out of the game. So it's going to have to be a really egregious interference to get that call.
And for the first time since the 2018 season wrapped up, we had a chance to hear from head coach Mike Tomlin. I asked him about his emotional response and reaction to losing Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell.
I think it's different. Le'Veon's been gone now for some time. So for me, I don't view it as if we're just lost Le'Veon Bell. We played without Le'Veon Bell in 2018, so there's less feelings regarding that. Obviously, it's disappointing that Antonio Brown moved on and he's no longer a member of us. But at the same time, if you've been in this business any length of time, you understand that people come and people go within this thing. You can waste a lot of time and energy looking back and things of that nature. I'm focused on the guys that are a part of us, the guys that have a desire to be a part of us, and their improvement and contributions for 2019.
The Steelers made 3 big signings in free agency: Steven Nelson, Dante Moncrief, and Mark Barron. I asked General Manager Kevin Colbert if he felt they were more aggressive this year.
Signing 3 veteran players is a little unusual for us, but we had the cap flexibility to do that type of stuff this year, so when it made sense, we just added players, but we didn't go in with any goal of signing 1, 2, 3. We just always kind of let it unfold, and that's how it ended up being this year.
And personally, my favorite part of this entire league meeting was getting to see the movie premiere of NFL Films' A Lifetime of Sundays. It featured the Steelers' very own Patricia Rooney and also 3 other iconic female owners: Virginia McCaskey, Martha Firestone Ford, and Norma Hunt. This film will be released at some point coming up, but I have to tell you, it was great to see a woman's perspective and all of the things they have done to help the game of football. And of course, when A Lifetime of Sundays is available, we will be the first to let you know. We highly recommend you getting a chance to see that. That is the very latest from here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'll see you back in Pittsburgh. Down here at the owners' meetings in Arizona, and I am pleased to be joined now by Sal Pal, our good friend from ESPN, and a lot to talk about in terms of the Steelers. No AB now, no Le'Veon Bell. Where do you see this team?
In transition, serious transition. I think they were in transition a little bit last year. They're going to have to find guys who can make plays. I think the big advantage that they have over the rest of the division is their offensive line. I think their offensive line is the best in the division, and maybe one of the best, probably the best in the AFC, especially since the Patriots lost their left tackle. So that's going to help a lot. And Ben's still Ben. So I talked to Mike Tomlin a little bit today and asked him some questions, and I agree with him about Ben Roethlisberger. I've always found Ben to be a guy who, is, from my standpoint, a guy who is a real tough leader of a football team. And if I were starting a team, I would want Tomlin and Roethlisberger for sure.
So where do you think this national criticism is coming from where, people are questioning, is Ben a good leader?
Well, some of it has been by his, we've heard some of it sort of tangentially from some of his former teammates, right? But I don't put too much stock in that because I need to have stories and anecdotes. Give me an idea of where it's happened, and everything that I've seen from him, it's just the opposite.
So when you hear Mike Tomlin, like you said, you spoke to Kevin Colbert, stuck up for him as being, the unquestioned leader of the team, you're okay with Ben?
More than okay. Yeah, I'm on board.
What do you think the Steelers need to do in terms of getting back into the playoffs and righting the ship of, usually what we're talking about at this time of the year?
Right. So, Tomlin alluded to it, right? He said, we need somebody who's going to make plays for us. So they need playmakers. And I think the conference will be different without Gronkowski, for sure. The way Brady makes his living in the middle of the field, have to double team Gronkowski, and not for nothing, but the Steelers have had problems covering Rob Gronkowski, so that problem's been eliminated.
All right, Sal, thanks as always for your time.
Thank you.
All right, the owners' meeting's concluding here in Arizona, and I am joined by Steelers president Art Rooney II. And Art, you guys finished up early. Was there a sense of urgency, or was it just you guys compromised on some things and were able to get everything done?
I think we worked efficiently today, and the competition committee wound up coming back with a proposal that they were unanimous on, and so that kind of helped move things along.
Now, from my understanding, this is a one-year trial. Can you explain what has been expanded in terms of replay?
I think the main thing that's been expanded is this year offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference will become reviewable plays. First time we've had penalties that can be reviewed, and so in that regard, it's kind of a major change. But it's in for 1 year, and I think that the thinking was that these are usually consequential plays involving a lot of yardage, game-changing kinds of plays, and so that's why it's going to be tried out for 1 year.
Kevin Colbert has stood up for him, Mike Tomlin has stood up for him, and even recently, former and current teammates are sticking up for him. In your eyes, what kind of leader, what kind of player and person is Ben Roethlisberger?
Look, I think Ben's record speaks for itself. He's been a great player for us for a long time now, and so it's not hard to understand why people are standing up for him, and we're looking forward to him continuing to perform at a high level for several more years now, and actually looking forward to getting back on the field here in the near future.
Coach Tomlin had brought up that year two jump from Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, TJ Watt. Have they kind of laid that blueprint for guys like Terrell Edmonds, James Washington, Jalen Samuels to do that same thing to make that big step in year two?
It's always a big step from year one to year two, and we always look for guys to take that kind of step, and so we have some young guys coming up this year that looking forward to seeing how they do.
Lastly, just in terms of making rule changes, it feels like every year that we're here, we are talking about proposals, some changes, some maybe things to look at. Do you feel like the NFL, it's a good thing or a bad thing that there are always changes?
I think we're always trying to make the game better, and also make changes without really doing harm to the game in terms of making games longer or having more stoppages. So there's always different things you have to balance. But I think our competition committee does a great job every year evaluating how to make the game better, how to make the game safer, and I think this past season was a great example. We had a lot of great games.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
The meetings have concluded here in Phoenix, Arizona, but I'm pleased to be joined by NFL Network's Judy Battista to talk about replay. This was kind of crazy. It didn't seem like anything was going to get done about it, and then all of a sudden it happened quickly and meetings ended early.
Yeah, when we all got here over the weekend, I don't think anybody even thought there were 24 votes to change anything, and then all of a sudden, not only did they change something, they made a huge shift. So the rule is now you can challenge offensive and defensive pass interference, and you can challenge if it's a non-call on the field. That to me, is the really big shift. That's something I thought there was no appetite for. I think most members of the competition committee thought there would be no appetite for. And then they got in the meeting rooms and look, they had some heated meetings. The coaches' meeting went way long and was quite emotional. There was a lot of frustration. The competition committee had a heated meeting amongst themselves. So there was a lot of airing of grievances, and they, I think, finally got to a point where they felt they could not leave here without doing something. They did not give coaches everything they wanted. Coaches, I think, wanted an official in the stadium who they could appeal to. They did not get that, but they did get the big thing, which is they're going to be able to challenge what the league admits is the biggest call that they miss and the call that changes games more than any other.
I know the NFC Championship is the big one for this, but the Steelers also, week 16 against the Saints, kind of another rule change, a little too late for them. But how do you think this is going to go over once they get in the stadiums and this starts taking place?
You know, it's interesting. We were talking to Troy Vincent earlier today about what do you think we're going to see. He expects that early in the season we're probably going to see a rise in offensive pass interference because he thinks that that will be challenged. That's something he said it's the hardest call officials have to make. But we all see that pick play being run all the time. He thinks there's going to be challenges on that now, so he thinks we might see a rise in that. He thinks that it's probably going to affect back shoulder fade plays. And interestingly, he said on the Hail Mary, which is something, when I talked to coaches last night, there were questions from coaches about how is this going to affect the Hail Mary at the end of each half. And Troy Vincent said the instruction to officials is going to be very disciplined on the Hail Mary. In other words, hands off the Hail Mary. Don't be ticky-tack on the Hail Mary. They don't want to wipe the Hail Mary opportunity out of the game. So it's going to have to be a really egregious interference to get that call.
It seems like every year that we're here, we're talking about replay or changing to the rules. Do you feel like there's too many changes sometimes, or is it benefiting the game and trying to get it to the level where everyone wants it?
Well, I think in this case they had to do something because that was such a glaring error and such a high-profile situation that I think they felt that their integrity was on the line here, and that they would have no credibility if they went back to fans and players and coaches and said, everything's okay, we're not going to change anything this year. Bigger picture, I think even the competition committee would say they are constantly concerned that the rule book is just too voluminous, too complex, that it's just very, very difficult for officials to call this game. The game used to be played between the hash marks, and now it is played sideline to sideline. The players are bigger and faster. It's harder and harder for officials to call the game, which I think is part of the reason why they want to expand the safety net, right? You want to give officials the best opportunity to get it right. But look, they'll admit that this is getting to be increasingly tougher and tougher to officiate the game.
All right, switching gears to the Steelers, just looking at the AFC North right now, how do you describe it, I guess? It just seems like there's a lot of buzz about the Browns, which sometimes is not the case, and everyone seems to be a little down on the Steelers right now.
Yeah, look, I think there's a sense that maybe there's a power shift in the division, whether that proves to be accurate or not. But obviously, the off-season storylines, right? It's all Cleveland. There's all of the excitement and all of the momentum with the Beckham trade and, Baker coming off the good rookie season. And then, of course, the Steelers, there's been some issues. And let's just keep everything in mind. It's March. There's a long way to go before they have to play games. We have to see what becomes of the Ravens. They had some big losses, too, especially on defense. The C.J. Mosley loss is big. So let's see how everything shakes out, before we make any final determinations. But look, there's certainly a sense that maybe there's a shift in power in the division going on right now.
All right, Judy, thanks as always for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.